to learn a little bit about the Nyungne practice. And so today, what I'd like to do is just give a general introduction to Nyungne, why we do it, and what it's all about. Because I'm so excited that you're going to have Khepo Tenkyang visiting you and giving a Nyungne retreat really soon. So we'll start with a sense of taking refuge in the Buddha as the teacher, the Dharma as the path, and the Sangha as our community. And also think about the motivation we have for listening to the teachings, and think that by hearing these teachings, may we become Buddhas ourselves in the future, and may we benefit all sentient beings. So I'll recite a short prayer of taking refuge. In the Buddha, his teaching, and the order most excellent, we take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By merit of generosity and other good deeds, may we attain Buddhahood for the sake of all that lives. In the Buddha, his teaching, and the order most excellent, we take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may we attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In the Buddha, his teaching, and the order most excellent, we take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may we attain Buddhahood for the sake of all that lives. I'll recite a short prayer of my own. O Palden Sawe Lama Rinpoche, Dagi Chi Warpede Denshala, Kadran Jebogone Jesunte. Ko Santoking Hudrup Saldu So. All right. Thanks again to everyone for joining. When we think about what it is, what a Nyungne is, and why we do these Nyungne retreats, the function of it is myriad. There are many functions to the Nyungne. And I think one of the functions of it is anytime we do a concentrated bunch of practice, whether it's the Chenrezik mantra practice, or it's a Tara practice, or whatever kind of practice we do in a concentrated way, it helps to like a tea bag. It begins to suffuse Dharma throughout our being. Because most of the time when we are doing Dharma practice, it's like hit or miss, start and stop. Perhaps we will be attentive. Hey there, we'll be attentive for a period of time, and then we'll be inattentive, or we'll forget to practice because we have to go to the store or do things for our families. So a concentrated period of time doing Dharma kind of steeps us in the Bodhisattva motivation, as well as steeping us in the practice itself. So that's really the function. This particular style of practice has a lot of benefits. The Nyungne retreat is usually 2.5 days, roughly. Usually the person who is leading the Nyungne will give an introductory talk the night before the teaching, so that you know what to do when you arrive. And then there'll be a practice that begins very early in the morning, sometimes 6 o'clock in the morning, and goes until the early part of the evening, perhaps 6 o'clock in the evening, or maybe even a little later. And on that day, there'll be mini sessions in the morning, like 1 or 2 little sessions in the morning. Then there'll be lunch, and then there'll be 1 or 2 and possibly even 3 sessions in the afternoon. And by doing these short sessions, we're able to adjust to the spirit of the retreat. We're able to adjust to the practice of the retreat and the environment. And that would be your first day. And because the Nyungne retreat is based on an experience of Chenrezik that was had by a great master of the past, the way that it's done is in the style of this great master, and her name was Gelongma Palmo. And I'll be talking about her in just a few minutes, so you can get an idea of her story and why she became so devoted to the Bodhisattva Chenrezik, the Bodhisattva of compassion. But because this tradition comes from her, it's one of several Tibetan traditions that comes down through the female lineage of masters. It's a wonderful practice for people to do who only have a short time to do a retreat. So the Nyungne retreat has the little sessions in the morning, a lunch break, and then sessions in the afternoon and early evening. That lunch break is very important because since the Nyungne practice is a practice of what we might call the three yanas, the Hinayana, the Mahayana, and the Vajrayana. The Hinayana part of it is that people who are doing the Nyungne retreat take Hinayana Sojong vows, which are vows of behavior, and almost you become like a temporary monk or nun for the period of 2.5 days, and that you do your best not to kill, steal, lie, commit sexual misconduct, and take intoxicants. But there are other vows that are also taken, such as only eating at good times or at particular times. And that means the noon meal on your first day is the last meal of the retreat. And the second day, those little mini sessions are done while you are fasting, because that's one of the features of this retreat. The first day, there's a lunch, and then when you get up from that lunch, you can drink liquids all evening into the late evening. But the next day, it's a complete fast from food and beverage. And then finally, on the morning of the third day, the fast is broken. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that as the talk progresses. But the vows that you take include the 5 precepts that you know and love from the lay precept manual, and from those of you who've read Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche's book, Dharma Paths, but also not taking food at the wrong times, meaning eating the one meal on the first day, not sitting on high seats or beds, which has to do with those of you who are royalty, give up your royal seats. You can, you don't have to sit above everybody, because you're not royal anyway. So it's easier for us to keep this one. And because Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche said, just sleep in your regular bed and sleep and eat and sit on your regular seat. Anyhow, then the final of the 8 special vows is not to sing, dance, or play music. And people ask, why is that? And I have a theory about it. Remember the 5 precepts? The sexual misconduct precept is kept completely, in that there is no romantic activity, let's put it that way, during the period of the 2.5 days. Therefore, it's probably not good to sing, dance, and do these other things, wear jewelry and perfumes, because it's about courtship behavior. Because when people are courting, they tend to beautify themselves with perfume and makeup and all of this kind of thing, and jewelry, and then they sing and dance as part of courtship. So they're trying to allow us to be monks and nuns for 2.5 days. So these vows will be explained to you at length by Khenpo Tenkyang, but this is just a brief review of the vows that are taken during the Nyungne, and why there's a lunch meal on the first day, but then no food or drink on the second day. The fast then is broken in the morning. Now you might say, hey, I take medication. Can I take my medication with a sip of water? For that, you need to ask the leader of the Nyungne. Some Nyungne leaders will say, oh yes, that's not a problem. Others will give you different advice. And so you need to ask the preceptor who is leading the retreat before the retreat begins. That way you get a chance to ask them about it. Also, on that last day, that second day, not only are you not eating, you're actually not talking except to chant the prayers on the second day. You're keeping silent. Why? Because it's also part of the atmosphere of retreat, very serious, very very serious, very inward looking. It allows you again to be a monk or a nun for the 2 days and change that you're doing the retreat. So remember I said that the Nyungne is a practice of the Hinayana, the Mahayana, and the Vajrayana. Now, as I say, I will get to that in just a few minutes. As to the Hinayana part of it is the comportment, the behavior, and the vows. But I think I'm getting ahead of myself in describing what the retreat is and how it works, because one of the things I wanted to do today was talk to you about the founder of the practice, Gelongma Palmo, tell a little of her story, and then show you what the practice itself is about. The person who created this practice was known as Gelongma Palmo. I'm going to see if I can, let's see, Gelongma Palmo Nyungne. See if I can get a picture of her for you. Oh yeah, there we go. That was easy. I'll share that with you on the Zoom here. Let's see, share screen. Oh, hey, let's see. It says here that the host has disabled participant screen sharing. Could you help me? Yes, thanks very much. That's great. Excellent. Here we go. All right. So here's our Gelongma Palmo. This is her. She started out life as a princess living in a palace in ancient India, and she had a lot of positive karma from previous lifetimes. She was born to a royal, wealthy family, but like all of us, in a way, she was like all of us. We're all a mixture of good karma that we inherit from our previous lives and negative karma that we inherit from our previous lives. So her good karma was that she was born as a princess and raised in a palace, but her negative karma was that she developed leprosy. And in those days, because leprosy was a progressive, frightening disease where people would lose fingers or even limbs to the sort of gangrenous condition that leprosy represents, it was said to be a cause for a lot of fear. And so those who contracted leprosy were often I think the word would be exiled and exiles. So this is what happened to Gelongma Palmo. The princess, who she was exiled because of her leprosy. She was exiled to live in the forest, and it was in the forest that she discovered a statue of Chenrezik, the Bodhisattva of compassion, a stone statue. And she prayed to Chenrezik, please help me cure this illness that I have. And so she lived somewhere around the 10th or 11th century. And so what happened was that she went into the forest, she encountered this statue, she prayed deeply to Chenrezik and put all of her faith in him and asked to be cured. And over time, she developed the habit of praying to Chenrezik many times a day while fasting every other day. And so after doing this very devoted practice for many months, something miraculous happened. She had a vision of Chenrezik, and in that vision of Chenrezik, he bathed her in Amrita or nectar, and bathing her in this Amrita, she was cured of her leprosy. And she became renowned as a Buddhist teacher. And so what happened to her, as I always say, is that these types of miraculous things are just so wondrous to think about, right? But because of her special relationship to Chenrezik, this practice that she established of praying to Chenrezik multiple times a day and fasting on alternate days was a way of her disciples also connecting to Chenrezik. And so then through the centuries, the practice morphed and changed and became the practice that we do today, the practice of Nyungne. And the word Nyungne has to do with the keeping of the vows and the practicing of pure conduct. And so that's a little bit about Gelong Mapalmo, a little of her story. And of course, Khenpo Tenkyang will probably tell you more and give you more information about her. But there's something I'd like to share, and that is a little bit of something about about Chenrezik, the form of Chenrezik that's practiced in the Nyungne. And let's see, I'm going to return to Zoom, and I'm going to do a screen share, and I'm going to show you a picture. Here we go. All right. This is a picture of what is called the 1,000-armed Chenrezik. This particular form of Chenrezik comes from a story about Chenrezik's bodhisattva conduct. When Chenrezik first engendered the bodhisattva motivation and made the aspiration to work for the benefit of all beings until samsara was completely emptied, it is said that after a period of eons of helping beings escape samsara, he took a look at all of samsara and to see how his effort was going. And what he found was, although he was able to help many, many millions and millions of beings escape samsara, there were millions and millions more who were not yet rescued from samsara. And it was said that at that moment, he lost his vow because he became despondent and discouraged and thought, well, there's no way I'll ever be able to keep this vow. And so upon the breaking of the vow, he broke into 1,000 pieces. That's how the story is told. Because he said, if I ever give up this vow, he said this in the past, if I ever give up this vow, may my body break into 1,000 pieces. Well, when this happened, the Chenrezik's guru, the Buddha Amitabha, who is the Buddha of the Western paradise of Dewa Chen, it is said that upon hearing of Chenrezik's situation, he came to comfort Chenrezik, and he reassembled his 1,000 pieces. And as he reassembled them, he reassembled him with more arms so that his many, many arms would be able to help many, many more beings. And whether these stories strike us as being fanciful or if they have some truth to them, there are some things to be said for each of us thinking of ourselves as bodhisattvas in training as being the 1,000 arms of Chenrezik. So it's something that we can keep in mind as we're practicing our Dharma. But this image of Chenrezik has 11 heads, and Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche, in a lengthy teaching that I'll make available to you as a PDF, he gives the symbolic meaning of each of these. He says that the 11 heads are the realization of the 11 bhumis, or the 11 bodhisattva levels. Now, those of you who have read your Dharma books, such as the Jewel Ornament of Liberation, know that there are 10 bodhisattva levels, but the 11th is Buddhahood itself. And so this is how they're using numbers in this regard. At the top is a peaceful head, which is actually the Buddha Amitabha, and then there's a wrathful face underneath that. The wrathful face is the symbolism that an enlightened bodhisattva has overcome all negative mental afflictions. And the peaceful head, which is the head of the Buddha Amitabha, is the inseparability with the Dharmakaya, the final stage of realization or simplicity. And so he does not go into detail about the other faces of Chenrezik, but he does go into a bit of detail about what he's holding in his hands. In his center two hands, he's holding a wish-fulfilling gem, which is symbolic of our Buddha nature, which if we are able to realize our Buddha nature, this helps us to fulfill the wishes of all beings, just as a wish-fulfilling jewel allows the person who possesses it to have all of their needs met. Every activity of a Buddha or Bodhisattva that comes from this place is inseparable from enlightenment or Dharmakaya itself. He's holding a rosary in his outer right hand, and this is symbolic of his saving of all sentient beings from the lower realms. He has another hand in the gesture of supreme giving, and this says that he says this Buddhahood can grant long life, success, prosperity, and so forth. The lotus flower is symbolic of his loving kindness, and it's also showing that he manifests in many forms, just like there are many petals of the lotus. He's also holding a bow and arrow in one hand. And the symbolism, let's see, looking to see if I have this. If I have this one in, it's believe it or not, this one is not noted here. So I can't help you with that one. That's interesting. Okay, sorry, I didn't see that. But he's also holding in this hand, he's holding a vase. And this vase is pouring water as a gesture of benefiting hungry ghosts, quenching their thirsts and benefiting their minds, because it's thought that this particular practice is very, very helpful. This practice of the thousand-armed Chenrezi is very helpful for beings in the lower realms of existence in particular, and particularly those who are in the hungry ghost realms. Those of us in the human realm can recognize the hungry ghost as a person who has constant hunger and thirst, whether it's constant hunger and thirst for success or for substances. Sometimes addiction karma is associated with the hungry ghost energy or fruition. So when we do these practices in the Nyungne, the practice of the thousand-armed Chenrezi is the main Chenrezi practice that is done in those many sessions of the Nyungne. This particular visualization of Chenrezi holding a vase that allows nectar to bathe the hungry ghosts and purify them. It's a really wonderful opportunity to pray for yourself if you've experienced addiction karma, or for someone else that you love who has experienced it. So that's a little bit about the thousand-armed Chenrezi, who is the focus of the Nyungne practice. Now, I'll give a couple of more bits of information about the Nyungne practice, and then I'll open things up for questions, because I'm guessing you may have some questions. But before we get to the question part, remember I told you that the Nyungne practice is a practice of the Hinayana, the Mahayana, and the Vajrayana. During the Nyungne practice, we practice all three yanas. We practice the 8 precepts of the Hinayana. And so we are temporary monks and nuns for 2 days. And then we also practice the Mahayana, in that we do the practice with the deep bodhisattva motivation to benefit all sentient beings. And then the Vajrayana aspect of it is that we practice the visualization and mantra of the Bodhisattva Chenrezi. And by doing the mantra and the visualization of Chenrezik, we relate to our own Buddha nature, which we can't see, but we relate to our own Buddha nature as being the Bodhisattva Chenrezik. And by visualizing ourselves as Chenrezik, we accumulate merit and goodness toward realizing our Buddha nature. And by visualizing Chenrezik in front of us, we have a focus for making merit and accumulating merit toward achieving enlightenment. And so the practice of the 1,000-armed Chenrezik that you will be doing in the Nyungne has many parts. There's a part where you take refuge. There's a part where you visualize Chenrezik as yourself as Chenrezik. There's a part where you visualize Chenrezik in front of you, and then you make lots and lots of offerings. And there's yet another form of Chenrezik where you visualize Chenrezik in a vase that is filled with water, and that you take a blessing from that vase every afternoon as a purification. And so by doing this multi-part practice, you visualize yourself as Chenrezik, then you visualize Chenrezik in front of you and make offerings and accumulate merit that you can dedicate to your loved ones. And then also you can do the practice of mantra to come to realize your own Buddha nature. There's also that aspect of the vase visualization, being able to benefit yourself and others through purification. It's thought that by combining these three yanas, that the Nyungne practice, this 1,000-armed Chenrezik practice that accompanied by vows and fasting, this practice is a complete practice of all three yanas. It serves many purposes, and the teaching that I'll share with you from Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche talks about those many benefits. One of the benefits of the practice is that it is said to purify a great deal of negative karma. And so if you come to the practice making the aspiration, by doing this practice, may I purify all of my negative karma, and may I purify the negative karma of all sentient beings, it will go a long way toward doing that. If you remember the teaching of the Buddha on karma, we've all lived countless lifetimes and accumulated enormous amounts of karma, some of it good, some of it not good. So if you remember from a talk I gave a few weeks ago, and I can't remember if I've given you this talk or not, but it was given in Columbus. The title of the talk was, "There's One Good Thing About Bad Karma." And it comes from a teaching by Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche, where he said there's one good thing about bad karma, and that is the karma can be purified. We made that karma, so we can unmake it. And we do that through the power of purification and confession. And all of these things are discussed in the teaching by Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche about the Nyungne that I will share with you by PDF. So you see, the practice of Nyungne has a lot of benefits. It helps you purify negative karma. It helps you understand the monastic discipline and hold monastic discipline. It helps to increase your bodhisattva motivation, and it helps you to benefit other beings. Now, there's a couple of other things I'd like to mention. And one of these things to mention is that that a lot of people say, well, why put yourself through this hardship? Why take only one meal on the first day of the Nyungne? And why fast totally from food and water on the second day? And then only break the fast very early in the morning, like around 5 o'clock in the morning on the third day. Why do you put yourself through that hardship? The answer to this is slightly complicated, but in a way, not really. Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche said, often we go through our life unaware of the suffering of beings around us. We tend to be rather center-focused or self-focused in our lives. I need this, I need that, I want this, I want that. And in a way, we're the central character of all of our internal dialogue and all of our internal stories. And so because of this self-focus, we often forget about other sentient beings. And we don't even think about those, especially those who are suffering, because for many of us, when we see suffering people, we want to turn away. And because it reminds us of our own suffering, and reminding us of our own suffering, we feel depressed. And so often when we see others suffering, we have an instinctive wish to turn away from that suffering and not see it. But what happens in the Nyungne retreat is that for a short period of time, this very long day of not eating and not drinking, we experience the suffering of other beings. Because if you think about it, the 6 realms of existence, there, according to the teachings of the Buddha, there are 3 lower realms and there are 3 higher realms. But all of these 6 realms of existence have some form of suffering. The God realm, even the highest realm, the God realm, where there's a great deal of enjoyment and pleasure, that birth in the God realm ends in falling to lower realms, because the gods use up all of their positive karma and then fall to lower realms after their death. And so even though they're having a great time in this life, it may not continue into their future life. In fact, it probably won't continue into their future life. The demigods are always at war with the gods. And so because they're always jealous of what the gods have and want them, they're often called jealous gods. They suffer so much from their jealousy. And then they commit a lot of negative karma by fighting and going to war. Then the next higher realm is the realm of humans. And as you know, we have a lot of suffering in our realm. The suffering of having to work continuously to even make a living. There's a lot of this sense of poverty about being human. And there's a lot of suffering of grasping and clinging in human rebirth. But the lower 3 realms, we don't really even pay attention to. We don't pay attention often to the suffering of animals who are enslaved by humans or killed by humans, or they're prey for one another. They are constantly being chased or being eaten, or chasing and eating. So they have a lot of suffering that we never see. Then there are the 2 lowest realms, the Preta realm, or the realm of the hungry spirits, and then the hell realms. Even though it is said by the great teachers that all of these births exist among humans, and that there are beings who are living as human beings right now who feel the fire and suffering of hell in this life. And there are those who suffer the hungry ghost karma of addiction and complications. And that there are those who really suffer from just being driven by their basest human instincts. And so what the Nyungne practice does is it reminds us of the suffering, especially of the three lower realms. According to the teaching by Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche, by remembering by fasting on that second day, we are causing ourselves minor discomfort compared to the horrible suffering of those in the three lowest realms. So in a way, we get, I guess you could say, a taste of the suffering of the beings in the lower realms, which Rinpoche said does 2 things. Number one, it helps us to be less selfish about seeing the suffering of others. And it also reminds us not to engage in the negative afflictions that cause lower realm rebirth. For the animals, it's chosen bewilderment and ignorance. And for the hungry ghosts, it's a miserliness and stinginess, not sharing what we have. And the hell beings, it's hatred and warfare and anger. And so by giving into these negative states of mind, we create these negative states of potential future rebirth. And so taking on this minor hardship of the second day purifies our karma for being reborn in those lower realms, as well as reminding us not to commit those actions in the future, and also thinking about and praying for the liberation of those in lower realms. So that is a little bit about about how we can think of these hardships. In fact, there's a wonderful book by Lama Lodu Rinpoche, the Lama who is in San Francisco, and he he wrote a book called, I think it was called actually Achieving Enlightenment, and it was about the Nyungne practice. And in that book, he gave a prayer, and it's called the Prayer for Victory Over Samsara. I'll send a copy of it to you, but I'll show it to you briefly now. It's a prayer in which it starts by saying Namo Guru Lokeshvaraya, meaning Chenrezik. And so he's basically saying the instructions for this path of fasting are given in order to wash away the defilements. They were given to wash away defilements of Gelongma Palma's ordinary form. Whatever virtue is accumulated by these practice brings benefit and happiness arising from the teaching of the Buddhas, the victorious ones. And then it says, whoever is a holder of this doctrine and preserves this practice helps to increase bliss and happiness for all sentient beings. And so basically, it talks about each of the sufferings you can have on that second day. It actually names them one by one. From this fast, difficulties of the body arise, but by clearly visualizing the emptiness of the deity's body, the bodily defilements of myself and others become purified. And then by being silent, the speech defilements of myself and others are purified. And by bearing the difficulties of the mind and not letting it wander and not falling asleep and so forth, may the power of deep yoga and compassion and emptiness arise in our mind. And it says, if because of the difficulty of not eating and drinking during this fast, the miseries of hunger and thirst arise, may the karma which through miserliness would cause one to be reborn among the hungry spirits, may that be purified. And so these are things that you can think about, and this is a prayer you can recite while you're doing the Nyungne in order to help you to reframe the hardships that you have chosen to undergo in the practice. So, that was a whirlwind trip through the practice of Nyungne. A little bit of the history, showing you the picture and telling you the story of Gelongma Palmo, describing what the day of the 2 days is like of the Nyungne, how the last meal is eaten on the first day at noon, and then how the fast is broken the morning with food and drink on the morning of the third day, and a little bit about the motivation one can have attending the Nyungne, and the great benefit that can be had by doing the Nyungne. So when Khenpo Tenkyang gets there and holds this retreat, I hope that you will try it out and try to follow the path of Gelongma Palmo and come to a place of recognition of the sufferings of the lower realms and feeling compassion for those in lower realms. So we have a little bit of time left. So if you have a question, I'm happy to answer. And if you have no questions, that's okay too.
Anybody online? Oh, Therona has a question on.
Yes.
Yes, hello, Lama Kathy.
Hey, hi there. Long time no see. Like 2 days ago, right?
Well, my question is very brief. As you were describing Lama Palmo, what being is she considered? You mentioned deity. So
That's an excellent question. I would have to read I'd have to read her story much more closely than I have up to now. But I do believe that she was a human being. She's not considered to be an emanation of anyone that I know of, but she and Chenrezik are buds. you know, but I will have to read the story more closely to see if she's considered an emanation of a Buddha. I'm sorry, I don't have a good answer for that.
It's okay, I'm glad I asked the question.
Let's see here. I had a quick question just from a preparation standpoint. Say if somebody hasn't done it, what, there's aspects. So say if people are doing Nundro, are there aspects of Nundro in it? I've heard different things. So I'm going to rely on you for preparation. Say if somebody wanted to look up the text, be prepared. How would you go about for a first timer?
Yeah, I would say that if you have the text, it would be good to just read through the text in English, because I do believe you have copies of the text there. So if somebody wanted to come in advance and sit at the center there in the library or in the shrine room and read the text through in English, I think that'd be nice. But Khenpo Ten may have his own ideas about which text to use and so forth. So he may contact you ahead of time to talk a little bit about it. You can always check with him and find out which version of the text he'll be using. But if you do have copies of the text there, I would start by reading that over in English. Aspects of Nundro, there are 2 prayers that are recited on these 2 days. There are 2 prayers. Each of remember I said there are these little mini sessions of 1,000-arm Chenrezik practice throughout the day. During those practices, there are 2 prayers that are recited with prostrations. And some people, like myself, I'm older now, I can't do prostrations. So I would bow from a standing position and do my prostrations this way. And what they do in some congregations is they have 1 or 2 people who can't do prostrations remain sitting and chant the prayer, so that every few lines other people can do prostrations. One of the prayers is a prayer of honor and confession to the Buddhas, and the other prayer is a prayer praising the qualities of Chenrezik. So those are the 2 prayers that prostrations are done during. And it really is up to the leader of the Nyungne how many prostrations people will be doing. So I would say if you wanted to do some half prostrations now to kind of get ready, that would be a good thing to do. Try to do a few of those every day. And by a few, I mean 10 or more. Yeah, that would be a really good preparation. And my friends in Columbus who are coffee drinkers also say quit your coffee a few days before.
Yes, absolutely.
Because you won't be drinking coffee on that second day.
We just heard a lot of groans.
You won't be drinking coffee on that second day. And if you're the person who gets a headache from not drinking coffee for 1 day, then you better get ready.
Excellent point. I have a question, Lama Kathy.
Yes, ma'am.
It's Connie. I'm going to see you.
Yeah, hi, babe. Hey, long time no see.
Yeah. And I don't know if this will be a question that Khenpo Ten would have to answer, but what if there are people who really don't feel that they can do this for physical reasons, or say they have a issue with food, somebody's telling me they kind of have food or kind of worried about doing it. Do you think that they would be able to at least sit in? I know Mama Georgie would let people sit in for parts, like people who cook, kick them in here then and sit for parts. Do you know if somebody would be allowed to sit in the whole thing, but just not do it if they want to, but sit in certain parts? Or do
you are going to have to ask him. You're going to have to ask him, because you're right. Every Lama has a different rule, and most of the lamas, there's a couple of rules that people always ask about, like, do I have to have the empowerment? And Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche said generally that's not required, so you don't need to worry about that. He might, Khenpo Tenkyang might give the reading transmission for the text as a blessing to everyone the night before. I think that would be an excellent thing. That way you have the blessing of the text. It would be great if you could get instructions on how to visualize, but he actually might teach you the visualization during the practice because he loves to teach. And so my guess is that he will have you chant something and then he'll describe a visualization to you. I think that part of it will go very well for you because he's really keen on people understanding what they're doing. But in terms of Your question as to whether other people can sit in or not, I would write to him right now and ask.
Oh,
I
great.
would get in contact with him now and ask him who can sit in. Here's an example. In Columbus on November 4th, which is a sacred day, we're going to be doing just the first day of a Nyungne retreat. Right now, Nyungne is very new at our center because we haven't done it in many years because of the pandemic. And there are a lot of new people who've never done a Nyungne before. So to make it a little easy for them, we're going to just do the one day with the fasting after lunch, and then the vow is given up the next day. But we're going to allow anybody who wants to come in, sit in and do Om Mani Padme Hum mantras. We're going to let anybody come in and sit in. But that's something that we're doing specially so that people can get an idea of what happens during a Nyungne. So you would need to talk to Khenpo Tenkyang, and I think that's an excellent idea, to get in touch with him now. Now, we have a few, and did that answer your question, Connie?
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yes.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, great. I see there's a question on Zoom. Barbara says, do you have a source for the mudras and instruments that are used? Ooh, excellent question. I don't offhand, but that doesn't mean I won't. Oh, Barter Toku Rinpoche wrote a book about the Nyungne, and so I'll type his name into chat, and you can search for his book, BARDORRINPOCHE. He wrote a book about the Nyungne, and there may be pictures. I don't know, but you can look and see. You can look online and see. The instruments that are used, every Lama who's leading this practice does it differently. Some Lamas, the main instrument that's used in terms of making music is a bell, and then there's also a vajra that goes with it. These are symbolic instruments. The bell is symbolic of wisdom, and the vajra is symbolic of skillful means, which are the two things that beings need for Buddhahood. And so you'll want to ask him, but I believe he allows everyone to play the bell. So if you have one, you can bring it. But again, you can ask him what his preferences are. Okay, does that help? Okay, I have time for a few more if you have a few more questions.
Well, a couple of real basic, just for expansive sake. So is it assumption that people who make inquiries to do the practice, certainly have taken refuge? That's question one.
Yeah, that's probably going to be the only requirement, is that they have taken refuge.
And then the other thing is, I believe Khenpo Arthur, he had a book, that showed him doing the mudras.
Oh yeah, that's right.
In terms of the
Yeah.
offering mudras.
Yeah, that book was a limited edition, and it's out of print, but I'm wondering if it appears online anywhere.
Yeah, and then I hope our library still has a copy of it here.
I'm guessing you do, because your center's been around long enough that you might have a copy of that book in your library. It's very beautiful. They're beautiful photographs.
I have it, but of course they still have that particular issue we talked about.
You can, if you're going to do the Nyungne, bring your copy with you.
Yeah,
There.
when I find it.
I also have a YouTube where I teach the basic ones. So yeah, because it's on the Lama Kathy YouTube channel.
Oh.
I know, weird, right? And if I try to navigate over to it right now, I might mess up our meeting, so I won't be able to do that right this second. But let me give it a shot. Does anyone else have questions?
One more question?
Sure.
All the prayers at KTD, I've been in here so long and I still don't know the basic prayers that they do at the beginning and the end. I sit there like a dance. Is there any way you can get me the prayers that they do?
Are you thinking? I'm wondering particularly what you mean, because I'm not 100% sure I understand which prayers you're asking about. Can you help me with that?
I think it's probably dedication and prayers. Dedication of merit prayers, probably. I'm not sure where they're starting. And they also, on the meal prayers, with this time we do an extra prayer before it gets the part of the meal prayer that we know. So I just have to sit there.
Oh, yeah. I'll tell you what we'll do is, I will, I think, yes, the KTD prayer book has all of them, but what you have to understand about KTD is that often the dedication prayers are the UMSE's choice. And so the UMSE will choose prayers that may not be in the book you have. And so if you have the dedication prayers from the Chenrezik sadhana memorized, for example, you'll see those and hear those over and over again. But there's actually something called the KTD prayer book, and that's what you would order, okay? The KTD prayer book. There's actually a prayer book called the KTD prayer book, and so you write to the bookstore and order it, and they'll send you one.
Thank you.
No problem. I just found the YouTube video, and so you'll see a much younger, much prettier Lama Kathy doing this, and that's down in the chat here. So if anybody is on the chat, they can see that. No other questions?
I think that's it. That was really good.
Thank you.
Okay.
See your face again. Enjoy KTD. I know you were doing an extended stay. That's wonderful.
Yeah. And by the way, did you get to the empowerment, Connie?
I did. It was amazing. And I got to redeem myself from not finding the road he left behind here. I looked twice and couldn't find his special road. So up there, I was staying at Carmeline that night because my ride to New York was next morning. And we got word up there that he had left his empowerment tents there. And I was to bring it to New York. And we got to New York into the shrine room exactly when he got into the shrine room. I handed it right over to Lama Green. Well, I guarded that with my life.
I bet.
So.
Well, thank you for performing a great deed of getting his empowerment implements to him before the empowerment. That's a great story.
It was a great short chance of getting married.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Well, you had a strong feeling that you needed to go, so now we know why.
Yeah.
And you're going to love this. I had a strong feeling that I shouldn't go, and I got sick that Friday night, and I was sick all Friday night and then into Saturday morning. So it would have been very hard to do an empowerment while sick like that.
Oh my God.
So we both got a bit of a blessing and a bit of purification, right? So it worked out great. Well, guys, I'm really thank you for this opportunity to talk about Nyungne. Like I say, I'll send an email this evening to Seth, and to thank you, Seth, by the way, for being our Zoom host, and also thanks to Mark. I'll send you guys a copy of the PDF that Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche is teaching about the Nyungne. And that's something that you can have in your library or share.
Thank you so much. Great.
Well, just thank you. And yeah, thanks to everybody who's saying thanks on Zoom. Thank you guys very much. And let's dedicate some merit, pulling together all of the merit that we've accumulated by talking about the Nyungne. Let's make the aspiration that all beings everywhere, especially the beings in the lower realms, are freed from their suffering, become Buddhas, and then emanate in all directions to benefit sentient beings. I'll recite a short prayer in English. And through this merit, may all achieve the omniscience of Buddhahood. May it defeat our common enemy, wrongdoing, from the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. From the ocean of samsara, may we free all beings. May we free all beings. May we free all beings. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Lama Kathy, so much.
Okay.
Bye.
Okay. All the best, guys. Take care. And you guys are recording it on your system there?
Yeah, and I can send it to you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye now.